I don't like this story. I don't like this isn't fun. I just recorded the one on Googly Eyes. That's the kind of story I want to cover. That's fun. It had googly eyes in it. This one is not fun. This was not fun at all. The word on the street, latest rumor, is that it is possible that the Punch-Out series is just kind of dead. Is like purposefully not being developed. And the idea is that it could have something to do with the backlash that Nintendo received regarding stereotypes in the last game, which was on the Wii. This information comes via Imran Khan from Kinda Funny Games, and I will just read the quote. I got someone from, let's say, a studio close to Punch-Out, drunk at a bar once, and asked about a new one. Not the classiest way to get privileged Nintendo information, but an effective one. Anyway, the story I was told, and bear in mind, this could just be the perspective of one person and no one else, was that there was significantly more backlash against the characters of the Wii game than they expected. And this team spent a lot of time assuring Nintendo that they weren't leaning into bad stereotypes that would get called out this time, so everyone just kind of furrowed their brow and called it done. Especially since other games from that team had much higher sales potential. So we can presume that the studio he's talking about here is Next Level Games. They made the last Punch-Out game, of course. And yeah, it seems that at least according to this unnamed individual, Nintendo was a little bit surprised by how much backlash they received regarding the characters in the game. And this is, I mean, it's an interesting story. I wasn't as much following news media at the time this game came out way back on the Wii. I don't, remember any particularly big backlash against the game. I really don't remember seeing any. And the thing is, it is very possible that there wasn't that big of a backlash at all. It could have been just a few articles or something. Because we know that Nintendo seems to be particularly sensitive to this kind of stuff. They seem to really not want to get involved. They don't want to drum up this kind of controversy. That's really just, it is not their style. So it could be that they're just a little bit extra sensitive and they don't want to, they don't want to make any more Punch-Out games because they don't want to risk it. That is possible. But it is kind of weird if this is true, because come on, one, if there wasn't actually really that big of a deal, then you don't need to worry about it. There's always going to be someone somewhere who feels something about a thing. That doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to make any major changes. But really the biggest thing is just, you can make a new one any way you want. You know what I mean? You can make any characters that you like if you feel like you need to be a little bit more sensitive about this kind of thing going forward. Maybe you agree. Maybe you're like, oh, you know what? I think we could have done some stuff a little differently. You can. You just do it kind of differently next time. You know what I mean? It seems like a pretty silly reason to just cancel the series forever. And I have to wonder, pure speculation here, I have to wonder if that's why ARMS was ARMS, when I really do. I mean, I could be, maybe the lore of ARMS is important enough, but it really did feel like that could have just been Punch-Out. That could have just been a new Punch-Out game, except a Punch-Out where your arms get all big and stretchy. It was still about the very concept of boxing and the left and the right and the directions and all that stuff. It really could have been. So I have to wonder if that was why ARMS wasn't a Punch-Out game. I really don't know. It is very, very much worth noting, however, that this might not just be Nintendo being way too overly sensitive about this. And they might not even have necessarily canceled the series forever. They might not have just definitively said, we're never going to do Punch-Out ever again. This could literally mostly come down to the fact that, well, you know what game didn't sell super well? It was Punch-Out on the Wii. Really, it didn't sell. So a little over 1 million units on the Wii. But you know what does seem to sell pretty well? It's Luigi's Mansion, which is another game series by Next Level Games. Those games tend to sell very, very, very well. So is this really a thing where Nintendo just like, you know, just chucked the Punch-Out IP in the trash and called it a day, we'll never touch it again? Or is this really like, that didn't go the way that we wanted, and it didn't really sell the way that we wanted, so let's just not, you know, let's just not, at least for like the foreseeable future. They don't have to have like made a decision that will last until the end of time. It could just be that like it meant that they just don't really want to try for a while, especially considering Nintendo. What do? They hold on to their IPs. Their IPs stay in the vault. They don't forget about anything. We got a brand new Famicom Detective Club, for Pete's sake. Punch-Out is always going to be a part of Nintendo's history. The IP will always exist. So I think it would be silly to imagine that we'll never get one ever again, especially just because of something like this. But it is possible that this was a pretty okay factor in them. You know, they haven't made a Punch-Out game since the Wii, so like, what's that been, like almost 20 years now or something? Let's see, 2009, so yeah, 16 years, yeah. And they could again someday, but maybe it's just not really a top priority, because Next Level Games could just be working on a Luigi's Mansion game instead. I like Luigi's Mansion an awful lot, so that's not the worst outcome from my perspective. However, I do know multiple people who are passionate Punch-Out fans, particularly the one on the Wii. They absolutely love. Apparently it was a really great game. Like, I only hear really, really amazing things about the game. It's not my kind of game, but if you are into that kind of game, apparently it's really great. So yeah, it's got a lot of passionate fans. So it is a little bit of a bummer. It's especially a bummer because if it is true that Nintendo is really not gonna give Punch-Out priority anytime soon with like a new game, this probably is also all but a guarantee that we're not gonna get a Punch-Out remaster either. I don't think if they thought there was some sort of backlash that they didn't like back then, I really don't think that they're going to be opening that whole thing up again anytime soon and giving us any kind of re-release of this game. You know, again, Nintendo, like they don't want to stir the pot. They don't want to alienate anybody anywhere. They want their games to be the most like friendly, broadly accessible and approachable games that you have ever played in the entire gaming universe. And so yeah, it's a shame if this is true. If this person who got drunk at a bar spilled the beans, if their perspective is correct, then yeah, it is a bummer. But yeah, now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna upload this video and turn off the comments preemptively. Wait, halt, do not end the video, past Arlo. Future Arlo here with some new information. It seems that when this story went out, Time Extension contacted a few Next Level Games employees to ask them their opinion on this whole thing. And according to some of these sources, it seems possible that this whole take was potentially just incorrect. They said that in a case like this, it's, I mean, it's just like what we just talked about. It really just comes down to, do you have a new and original idea for a new game? Does it really feel like there's a reason for a new game? It seems that's probably more of a reason than anything that we haven't gotten a new Punch-Out. And on the subject of the whole racial stereotypes thing, someone said this: "We faced quite a few challenges on the Wii version in regards to avoiding or perpetuating cultural stereotypes. Things like Great Tiger's mysticism or Aran Ryan's brusque Irish mannerisms just made the cut after a lengthy debate. Previous characters like Kid Quick were cut due to their dated representation and instead replaced with more modern, original characters like Disco Kid. Some stereotypes we actually leaned into, like Bear Hugger, since we were a Canadian developer and felt comfortable with doing so. But according to these people, they don't recall receiving any sort of backlash or notification about some sort of backlash, and so they believe that this was a non-issue. And so there you go. It is possible that it was a non-issue. Of course, at the same time, we don't know these people. Literally everyone related to this story has been completely anonymous, all of the actual developers. And so I just inhaled a hair. Sorry. Right in the middle of my words. Yep, there it is. Sorry, somebody just suck a hair right into your throat. What was I saying? It is possible that different people at a company are going to be privy to different knowledge of these things. But I don't know, if you had to pick a side, it seems possible, possibly more likely that these people are correct, that there wasn't much of a backlash, because again, I don't remember anything like that happening, but also, again, it was such a very long time ago. So ultimately, you just have a few different sources, both saying kind of different things. Don't necessarily know which perspective is correct, but I do absolutely believe the idea that, again, you don't just make a new entry in a series just because, as much as sometimes we kind of wish that they would, but Nintendo doesn't really work that way. You have to have a pitch, you have to have a really solid new idea, there has to feel like a reason why a new entry in this series should happen, and if nobody has come up with that pitch and there are other more important series to work on, then there you go. And we still could potentially get a new Punch-Out someday if they figure out a new and inventive way to punch people in the face, I guess.